Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day, whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. I'm just glad you're here. Today, I have got the treat of being able to show you guys and check out this Wolf Midnight FIXedc. It is a fixed blade knife. I will tell you guys, this was not given to me. It was sent in for me to check out after I oohed and awed over at the Blade Show. Ben actually sent me his, didn't come in a box. He put a lanyard on it. I'm checking it out for a few days and sending it back. And all I can tell you is I'm blown away. And we'll talk about some different things as we look at the knife. But keep in mind as a qualifier, I'm a big fan of small EDC sized, smaller fixed blade knives, right? I'm also kind of partial to pocket droppers. I like slicing knives. I'm not your average knife guy, right? We're all kind of different, but that's my jam. So when I saw this at Blade Show, it's got an ambidextrous sheath. So it's a midnight pattern, which is that nice Warncliffey pattern. It's full tang construction with a coffin handle. This one's in black. I think it's linen micarta. This was also available in purple carbon fiber, purple fat carbon. I think it was available in titanium. I know, and I'll leave links to a couple of places that still have the Ultim. I'm missing a finish. And it was also in a kind of an abalone finish that was a special traditional pocket knives, maybe. I could be wrong. But anyway, what we have here is a what I would consider a gentleman's fixed blade knife. It's stonewash finish, really nice crown spine that comes down to I'm talking splinter digging tip, deep hollow ground blade. When we get here in a second, we'll cut with it, but everything that I've ever loved as much as anything else about Wolf's was how thin and slicey they were, and this one did not disappoint. You've got this real nice anodized Torx hardware. Not that you'd ever be taking off your scales, but if you were ever, let's say you got it wet and you wanted to take off your scales for whatever reason, I think these are going to be T8s. Not T10. Hold on, let me just check. I wanted to make sure, because they're very deep. They're very well done. Again, do not know who the OEM for Wolf knives are. Yeah, it's a T8. So you've got 4 T8 fasteners that hold on your scale material, which is your linen. You've got this nice integrated lanyard tube. I'm not a big lanyard guy, but I can see how, like I've always said, most of my small EDC Fixies have lanyard holes, and I can see why they would give you a little bit more purchase. I think this one just looks classy. It's just a little leather loop, I think, that Ben put through there and put just a simple knot on it. This knife is in S90V, as have been, I think, most of the last run of Wolf knives. It is very thin. We'll compare it to some other small fixed blades, and we'll get some measurements off of it here in a second. But let's get some paper, because keep in mind, my small EDC fixed blades, the ones that I really like, because I'm getting ready to do 5 small EDC Fixies that are some of my favorites. I'm not looking for something to go out and chop trees down with, to necessarily feather stick or split, you know, a log with using a club. I'm looking for something to make basic cuts, right? Not just cut paper, but cut things like packages, cardboard, tape. What's great about this knife, besides the coffin handle, is just melts into your hand, and you've got this forward little, not really a choil, but I'd call it a choil. But what you've got on this tip, besides being able to dig out splinters, is you've got probably one of the sharpest, piercingest, slicingest tips that I've seen in a long time. I mean, it is just an absolute shredder. So Not that I would use this as a Slurpee saver, but if it was the only thing I had in my pocket, it would be a fantastic Slurpee saver. If I was going to break down a lot of cardboard, if I had to work a lot of straps, if I had to, if I was big into whittling, woodworking, carving, things like that, this little knife to me is elegant. It is gentlemanly, which is kind of a weird term for elegant. It is, I think, an understated, elegant knife that I'm not a traditionalist. I don't understand a lot of the standard patterns and things like that, but Ben does and built a company around it. I can recognize a Coffin handle, which I think looks fantastic. I love the blade shape, and then we'll get some measurements to the handle shape. I just think it's an absolute home run. When I got to Blade Show, it's ironic. Last year, I'd finally decided to get my first Jack Wolf slip joint. I was going to get a feel-good jack. So I get to the booth, and they are showing me the Gunslinger jack, which was the first locking Jack Wolf, which I've tried, but I haven't gotten yet. And I was like, guys, I finally have gotten myself to where I want a slip joint. I can't even think, because my mind's kind of brain dead, I can't even think about a locking Jack Wolf. But when I saw and was surprised, because I had no idea this was coming out, a small fixed blade, I immediately sent an IG message before Blade Show to Ben, and I said, God, this is absolutely outstanding. I love just for my brain to go to weird places of what other Jack Wolf designs could be turned into small fixies. Now these run under $250, I want to say $248.99, something like that, $249.99. And I've heard a lot of people say, rightfully so, it's not an inexpensive knife. It's a quality knife, OEM'd by a very fine manufacturer, and where value to me comes into play is a lot of the design that goes into the knife that makes the knife appealing, that makes the knife functional, that makes the knife unique. And I've got several knives that I love that are imported knives that happen to be OEM by Bestech. Again, we do not know where this one's OEM'd, but I've got the Griffin Company Scout 2.5, great knife, and I've got my Vero Axon. You guys know I love this knife. This knife was $285 in M390, and this knife I want to say in, I think that's M390, might be S35. I think it's S35VN. I want to say this was $270. Both of them, I was happy to pay for it. They're great knives. I also love my American knives. So when I look at the price of the Midnight FIXedc, to me, if I was in a knife buying mode like I've been in and will be in again, this is well within what I would consider to be a value for a knife that I'm really going to enjoy. I think the sheath that it comes with, I've always liked the Jack Wolf slips, but this takes it to a whole nother level. This is an actual sheath. You can see that stitching of leather that's cut out, that's placed between those two edges, and how thick that is. And with it being a Wharncliffe sheep's foot blade, it's truly ambidextrous. So depending on if you're going to draw it right-handed or left-handed, you just position it so that it's fitting the point of that slip so that it works well. And if you'll notice, you've got really good stitching, and you've got this deep concealment clip or deep concealment type clip that's sewn in and mounted inside the leather sheath. And if you can see down in here, you've got a little bar that goes back and has a little hook. And what that does is when you pull this down, and I put this over my right pocket or put it over my back pocket and release it, it absolutely holds the knife right there. So it's clamped in well under my hem. The sheath's not pulling out, and the knife is very easy to pull out. And just like other fixed blades, that I love, EDC fixed blades, whether I'm carrying them as an accessory to my regular carry or as my only knife, I tend to use them more because they're easier to get out. So when we look at this guy compared to some knives that we might be familiar with, the Civivi Baby Banter and the Benchmade Baby Bug Out, it's going to be a little bit bigger than the Baby Banter and a little bit smaller than the Baby Bug Out. Now, what you guys will have to do, because you know I'm terrible with measurements, I'll also leave a link to Jack Wolf's site because he's got all the measurements listed. I'm going to call this right over 5 3/4, between 5 3/4 and 6 inches overall. That's going to be my measurement because I don't know how else to measure it. If I'm going to measure it from the handle, I'm going to call it right under a 3-inch blade with a 2.5 inch very sharp cutting area, a very well done choil where you can see that plunge grind comes all the way back to that triangle. I love to see that. And the handle where I measure it, which is going to be from that corner to the choil that I use, is 3 1/8 inches. So that's 3 1/8 from right here to right here, even though I keep it right here. So if you want to see a measurement from the inside to the choil, you're at 2 3/4. So 2 3/4, but I can get a full 4 on it because with the coffin shape, it just wraps up. I don't even think, personally, if it was my knife, that I would need the lanyard to make it feel very comfortable in hand. I do love the black linen. I like all the finishes, really. When I was at the show, I held the titanium. It went quick. I kind of knew it would. But for me, it was probably the least favorite because it was a little bit heavier and it didn't look as traditional. The purple camo didn't look traditional either, but it's sick. I think this is sick. I think they're all sick. I think the Ultim looks really good. Let's do a real quick blade stock. And you know I'll do my best to get the edge, but I'm not going to spend too much time on it. So we've got a blade stock that is 0.1220. We've got a very nice narrow contoured handle that's going to come in at 0.3640, so well under 1/2 inch. And a behind the edge thickness, if I can get it, of 0.0195. Guys, you know I try to measure at the top of the bevel. I'm not exactly, there's no need for me to try to go all across the edge because I can assure you, as we looked at it when it cut, it is super slicey. Let's compare it to a couple of my favorite knives that I carry, small knives that I just really love. I really love my little Bark River Micro Canadian. I carry it vertically. It's a little 3V knife, but has a much shorter blade. So it's a great knife, but from an EDC standpoint, it's not going to probably give me as good a functionality because I've got a 2.5 inch blade there, or 2 3/4. It's going to be right around the same size as my T. Denny Apprentice, a tiny bit shorter, but again, it's going to have more blade length, similar pokey tip. I love this knife too. These are some of my favorite small little knives. And then we've got my old faithful, the little Jacob Creates Chickadee, which is going to come in a good bit smaller, about 1 inch. I think this is a 5-inch knife, and we thought this was right under 6 inches. Has a much smaller 3-inch handle, but still, just a fantastic little knife that I really like. And then lastly, we'll look at something that's not as conventional, but my Amsler Tools Hurricane Razor. Again, a much smaller knife, a knife that carries really well as a neck knife or as a pencil style knife in your shirt pocket, but it's going to be shorter, have a much shorter blade. It'll be good for opening packages. It'll be good for things like this. But when I look at this little knife, I see a true fixed blade EDC winner. That is just my 100% objective opinion. No, I've not carried it for 10 days. No, I've not run it through everything it could possibly run through. I know the steel is 61 to 63 HRC. I know it's S90V. I know my Feel Good and my low drag jack, which are also S90V, are still extremely sharp and have never been sharpened. So I feel very, very comfortable with the actual quality of not only the blade steel, but the grind and the materials used to put the knife together. But I just want to say well done to Jack Wolf Knives. Well done to Ben, to Donnie. What a great surprise. The last thing I was expecting was to walk up and see a Jack Wolf fixed blade. And again, I will one day own this knife. I love it, one like this, but just my imagination goes where Jack Wolf knives can go if they integrate and they're successful with the small fixies. I'm really excited to see that. But guys, I hope you found this informative, educational, entertaining. I'm a big fan of it. I appreciate all of you coming. I want to thank the channel members. I want to ask anybody who's come in, make sure that you know I appreciate you checking out the content, checking out the video. If you're so inclined and you haven't had a chance, if you'd hit that subscribe button and the bell notification, it would really stoke me out. But most importantly, please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for the guy or gal to your right. Please look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart and choose to bait, not hate. I love you all. Peace.